Hello and welcome to Desert Trippin. We are here in Two Guns, Arizona, and we're going to take a look around here. I've been wanting to come here for so long, and I can't believe we're actually here. This gas station here is the last surviving piece of Two Guns, which was once sort of a thriving little tourist stop, motor service station, restaurant, trading post. The one guy was running a little zoo in the area, and we're going to try to find all the ruins of all that stuff. But first we're going to look at this this gas station. It was a Texaco station, and as you can see, they're not selling a lot of gasoline these days. And this station was the last functioning business in the area, and it burned down in 1971. And up till that time, the area was struggling to stay in business because the old Route 66 got kind of moved over to the new interstate, I guess Interstate 40 or something. And as a result, all of the little tourist stops and gas stations and restaurants that had popped up along Route 66 had no purpose anymore. But, you know, what they're not selling in gasoline, I think they're more than making up for in spray paint. It smells like fresh paint in here. So yeah, this is probably the office, the service bay, and I don't know what they were doing here, but these are the restrooms. Not much left here either. Even the toilets are gone. So if you have to use the bathroom, you better have a good aim. I do think that graffiti has a certain beauty to it. You may not agree, but this is it. This is the entryway to Two Guns, Arizona. And then up this way is the KOA Campground. We're going to look for that. We're going to drive up to the next spot, which is the old abandoned KOA Campground. And then there's a water tower. I see some graffiti on it. Some people said that the image up there might have been Two Guns, or it might have been Earl Cundiff. This water tower has a frontiersman on it and sort of a death skull. So we're approaching the KOA swimming hole, and oh my god, it looks like there's a fresh coat of graffiti on it. But even the ground has been painted. Live fast, eat ass. Looks like a birthday cake here. I'm actually kind of digging this this color scheme they have here. And look at this turtle. Very cool. Those are very soulful eyes. Well, I think it looks like a building with a collapsed roof. And from the distance, I thought it was just a pile of dirt. But I don't know what. This is part of the KOA campground, so maybe it was, I don't know. I guess we could try to do some research, but yeah, something obviously caused the roof just to fall straight down. Okay, over and out. 3, 2, 1. Let me tell you a few things about this area on a timeline. Way back in the year 1050, from 1050 to 1600, Native Americans were very active in this area. This area was controlled by the Apache and the Navajo, and depending on what century it was, different tribes controlled it, and they were always at war with each other. Then I guess in the 15th century, the Spaniards started coming through here. I believe in 1528, a guy named Cabeza de Vaca explored this area. Cabeza means head in Spanish, so his name was Head. In 1881, the Atlantic and Pacific Railroad came through here. Canyon Diablo began a short life. The canyon is 255 feet deep. And then in 1882, one of the last cavalry massacres occurred just south of Two Guns, where the white man slaughtered 50 Apaches and their chief, Natoitish. I guess he was a pretty famous Apache chief, and the U.S. cavalry slaughtered them. I guess they called it a massacre in the history books. 1915, Canyon Diablo Bridge opens, which was pretty historical because now people had a way to drive across it. 1920, Ed Randolph settled the area around 1920, not exactly sure, but he built a store next to the Death Cave where we're going right now. In 1922, Earl and Louise Cundiff, remember their names because they're important, they purchased 32 acres for $1,000, and they built a store and a restaurant and a gas station, and that was a business that was going on. Then 3 years later, a guy named Harry Miller, and he's super important to this story, he leased some land from them on a 10-year lease. And while he was here, he kind of started taking over. He built a zoo, he built another trading post with a Indian theme, and he started conducting tours of the Death Caves. So there's some other history too, but this clip is getting very long, so we're going to cut it here, and if we have time, we'll come back with some of these other fun facts. Okay, we're going to go down and see the original Two Guns trading post area and Canyon Lodge and the Death Cave, and hopefully get into the Death Cave. Okay, over and out. 3, 2, 1. I did some research about this area, Two Guns, and in order to understand the history of this place, I think you have to understand the geology of this place. This is Canyon Diablo, the Devil's Canyon. It's 255 feet to the bottom of the canyon here. Could you imagine trying to cross this canyon on a horse, or with a covered wagon, or even a Model T Ford? Yeah, honey, I'm just going to drive across the canyon to get some milk. So this bridge kind of changed the whole landscape. It's called the Canyon Diablo Bridge. It was built in 1915, and if you can imagine, this side is solid because they tried to keep water from splashing in, and if it did splash in, it had holes in it to escape. So I can't imagine water being this high, but I mean, everything around here is so flat. Like, all the water from miles around just collects and comes down this gorge, and it must be ridiculously swift when it's happening. But it's a beautiful canyon. But that's an interesting fun fact. 1915, it's kind of falling apart. They have wire up, and I don't know if I'm not supposed to be on here, or it's pretty easy to get on here, so what do we have here? Okay, we drove up this area here. There's a whole complex of old ruins that we're going to walk around, and I think this was the old Canyon Lodge. Okay, this was the original trading post. I saw an old photograph of this building. It has kind of a round turret on the front. See, it's kind of rounded there. I have a feeling this is where Harry Miller shot Earl Cundiff, right here in this location. I think you can actually walk up the stairway here. Let's see if I can do it. Okay, that's not that safe. Okay, it's not safe at all. Oh, and you can stand up on the roof. Okay. This is a good view. Hopefully it doesn't cave in on me like it did right there. Okay, watch out for that third step. I'm coming down. Let's use 2 hands here. Okay. If you hear the loud crunch and a yelling, it means that I fell. But hopefully that's not the case. Okay. As agile as a cat. Meow. Okay, so a while ago I told you that Earl and Louise Cundiff bought 32 acres of land out here in, I think, 1922. So they built their little business there, and it was running for a few years, and then along came Harry Miller in 1925, and he wanted to lease some land from them. So I think it was a 10-year lease, uncertain what the terms were. I don't think they even knew what the terms were, because that was the source of some conflict later. The way the story goes is Harry Miller started calling himself an Indian, and he changed his name to Chief Crazy Thunder. He changed the name of the place, which was Canyon Lodge, to Two Guns, and he named it after a guy named William Surrey Two Guns or something. I forgot his last name, but he was a silent film actor known for his two revolvers, the Navy 1851 Navy Colts. Harry convinces Earl and Louise to lease him some land, and he's gonna build up some businesses on the land and draw more people here. So he builds a zoo, and then he builds kind of a tour business around the Indian death caves, and he builds up that legend. The other reason why that legend is probably bullshit is because that legend never existed before like the 19th century, and the cave had been around for a long time. So Harry now has a tour guide business going into the caves. He's got his Hopi Indian friends building rock dwellings along the side of the cliff. He's got his zoo with a few mountain lions and a lynx and a Gila monster, a bunch of scary, deadly animals, and people are stopping. That goes on for about a year, and then on March 3rd, 1926, Earl Cundiff and Harry Miller get into a big argument, and Harry shoots Earl Cundiff dead, and Earl Cundiff is unarmed. Now, everyone kind of says that, wow, it's a miracle that Harry Miller talked his way out of it. He claimed it was self-defense. He was acquitted. And the more I think about it, after walking around here, I started thinking there might be more to the story than you think. Maybe Harry Miller wasn't as horrible as we think. He came here and he had some big plans. He actually did something about it. He had all these Native Americans working for him, building these rock dwellings. They were selling souvenirs. They were selling more gas. They were selling more people staying in the motel and the store. So I think it's a case of Earl Cundiff was the big landlord, and he wanted to be the big dog, and he didn't like Harry Miller coming in here and taking some of his thunder away. So I think that the altercation was Earl trying to kick Harry out after Harry had invested all his time and money and energy, and Harry's like, no, I'm making all this up. But it's not completely unreasonable if you think about it. They argued. Earl could have been a real mean, badass guy, right? Harry shoots him. You don't know what, you weren't there. We don't know if maybe, Earl might have picked up a stick or a knife or something, and he might have been coming at him. Maybe the only thing Harry had was a gun, so maybe he had to use it. So I don't know how bad of a guy Harry Miller was, because he did do a lot. He put his money where his mouth is, and he was really making some changes here, and I could see how that might piss off a guy like Earl Cundiff. In 1925, men were very chauvinistic. Louise Cundiff remarried like a year later, and she never left. After Earl was killed, she stuck around, and she kept running the store here with Harry Miller, and Harry was around. So they had to work side by side. They were both sharing the land. That kind of tells me that either Louise didn't really mind so much that her husband was shot. Maybe she was glad. I don't know. I mean, do you know? If anybody has any more information, I don't think there is any information out there because I've scoured the internet. But if there's a historian out there and you can tell me exactly any more details about the case. Louise stuck around. She remarried a new guy a year later, Harry Miller, Chief Crazy Thunder. He wound up having a bunch of bad luck, and they say he was cursed or jinxed. He got mauled by a mountain lion. I think the lynx ripped his stomach open. He got bitten on the nose by a Gila monster. And then on top of it, in 1929, Harry Miller's trading post burned down, the interior. And I think Louise Cundiff probably had a lot of product in there that was being sold, because they said that Harry Miller took all the product with him when he left town. So he must have been in business with Louise. She must have not been that bothered by her husband being shot. You know, I'm not saying that Earl Cundiff was a mean bastard and beat on his wife or anything. But in the 1920s, men got away with a lot of shit, you know? So I'm just saying that when you hear other stories of this legend and two guns and the death cave, just keep in mind, when you come out here and you walk around and you look at things, sometimes you get a sense of maybe how things might have gone. So that's what I'm going to leave you with. Okay, so we came from there, and look, there's a whole series of buildings here. Now that, I bet that's the entrance to the death cave, huh? I'm guessing this is going to be the death cave. And if it is, we are in business.